Being a student of the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies, I, your liberty-loving Latino, seek to make the seemingly complex understandable. To convey to you, my beloved audience, the reality of our political and governmental situation, I have sought to cut through the lies and sophistry of the Republican-Democrat two-party system and more clearly define who and what people are judged solely on their actions, not their rhetoric or so-called political affiliation. Hence, I have deemed the America First and America Last political divide in this country. Those names far better define a system of values and actions that tell us a more accurate and complete story about our political class. Today, I will use two high-profile stories to show this audience the America Last crowd in action. America Last politicians exposed. That's my focus in today's preamble. Let's start with the grand old, and I do mean old, party. They are so old, folks. How old are they? They're so old they've forgotten why they were allegedly created, to defend us from leftist tyranny. As I reported to you last week, the Democrats in the America Last coalition have undertaken an unprecedented campaign of obstruction. The very same party that screamed to staff their leftist governments so that Barack Obama and Joe Biden, they deserve their nominees' swift and definitive approval. They are now the ones denying President Trump that very same standard. As the Senate's work is far from being done, this show and a large part of the conservative movement said the Senate should not go on vacation and keep the Democrats in D.C. as a proper consequence for their obstruction. But the GOP didn't want to anger the Democrats, not even for President Trump's America First agenda, not even for their own GOP voters. The Republican leadership rewarded the Democrats' historic obstruction by allowing the Senate to go on an undeserved vacation. But it gets worse. Not only did Leader Thune and his GOP leadership team let the Democrats get away with this malfeasance, the Republicans seemingly knifed President Trump in the back by keeping the Senate in a pro forma session of Congress. That means the Senate is technically in session, but doing no work for our people. This prevents recess appointments from President Trump, so his government can be fully staffed. When Barack Obama ignored the pro forma session of Congress and put his appointees into government anyway, the GOP sat back and they took it. They did nothing to stop Obama. They made him pay no political price. It took years and tons of damage from those appointees to our country before the Supreme Court finally ruled that Obama had violated the Constitution again. The GOP allowed Democrats to harm us. The GOP allowed Democrats to get away with harming Republican voters across the fruited plain. That's not why Republican voters hired them. But it's not just the America Last GOP-controlled Senate that is sloughing off when there's work to be done. In my home state of Texas, Democrats and the America Last coalition have abandoned the state again. They are trying to stop President Trump's redistricting plan by denying a quorum for the Texas House, so no business can be conducted. The Democrats are hypocrites. They redistrict against Republicans all over the United States in states where they control the levers of power. But if the GOP gives the Democrats just a little taste of their own medicine, Democrats can't take it. Let that sink in. Democrats can't take being treated how they treat everybody else. As stated, this isn't the first time Democrats have abandoned their voters and the jobs they campaigned for. The last time they did this was over voting integrity measures in Texas designed to stop Democrats cheating at the ballot box. Here's what Symphronia Thompson, a woman who is the longest-serving politician in the Texas House, 52 years. Here's what she said about how she views her job and those who are insisting that she stay and do her job.
We refuse to be a hostage.
That's right.
To remain a hostage within the state of Texas. And I know that there are search warrants out for us, and I'm ready to be arrested. What do you do to a slave if you don't do nothing but arrest them when they flee? We fled Texas, and if they want to arrest me, go ahead. I'm ready to be arrested.
That's right. That's how Democrats view their jobs as politicians. It's slavery to them if our people expect them to work at the jobs they claimed they wanted when they ran for election. By the way, the fake GOP speaker then, Dade Phelan, gave no real punishment for Democrats when they broke quorum the last time. So guess what? Democrats did it again. Fast forward to this Democrat-created crisis we're now dealing with, this time over President Trump's much-needed redistricting plan. Here's what Symphronia Thompson said of the GOP making these districts more fair with competing ideas.
9 being a district for minorities, because the way 9 is configured and the areas they went in, it's going to elect a Republican, not a black.
Wow, it could be a Republican or a black, says Democrat Symphronia Thompson. The racist assumption being that if a person is black, well, they must be a Marxist kook. The assumption being if it's a Latino, it must be a leftist, right? At this point, I should note for the audience that the America Last crowd is anti-American and racist. Thus, it is ignorant. Perhaps that's why the Supreme Court is finally set to review a racist section in the Voting Rights Act. This section, which institutionalizes racism, mandates that districts be created that are majority black or majority Latino. It is one of the many unconstitutional laws gifted to us by the America Last Democrats that keep this nation divided. If the Supreme Court is not racist, they should strike down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. As your liberty-loving Latino says, the first step toward defeating the ignorance of racism is to stop being a racist. Well, there you have it, folks. 2 stories happening simultaneously, each showing the values and tenets of the America Last Republicans and Democrats and what unites them. They stand opposed to anything and everything the America First coalition covets. Shouldn't we at least return the favor? That effort begins in the 2026 primaries. You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.